This is Kevin Lawson, everybody, and I'm super stoked to be talking about not only my new record, Send Musicians to Prison, but I'm very excited to talk to the head honcho of the whole entire organization. That is SMTP. His name is Nathan Lee, and he's right there. Nathan, my brother, how are you?
I'm well, Kevin.
Happy Sunday to you.
Same to you.
Yeah, man. I wanted to talk about the record and all the good stuff that is Send Musicians to Prison. So in October, I came and played right behind you there in your beautiful studio. I recorded a little small set, acoustic set. And I just released that on iTunes and Spotify and all the things on YouTube, all the videos for it. So as I've been out and about playing some shows and stuff, people think it's just a random title, Send Musicians to Prison. And they think, well, that's funny. It is sort of a play on words, but it's legitimately a real thing. Can you tell us just briefly, what is Send Musicians to Prison?
The short of it is, it's a nonprofit that brings music into prisons. And by bringing live concerts, live events, we mostly work in maximum security facilities, death row facilities, hospice facilities. And so in a given year, we're usually between LA, New York, and Nashville holding residencies. And by residencies, we may be in one facility for a week, or for 3 days, we'll go to another state. And then we have various one-offs. But that's the knee-jerk elevator pitch of what the nonprofit as a whole is. And each of those events are different artists. And sometimes if an artist has a few days off on tour, or in our home city of Nashville, they might do 2 days of events or 2 events in 1 day. So in a given year, it could be anywhere from 24 events to 70 events. And the reason you were here in our studio in Nashville recording was, up until COVID, we had only ever done live events. During COVID, obviously we couldn't go anywhere. So we started recording in our rehearsal facility in Nashville, where artists would usually rehearse the night before to dial in their prison set. And during COVID, we started filming and sending that content to prisons for their tablets. So inmates in their cells could have content to watch on their tablets, as well as watch on the TVs and the program rooms and the chow halls. And you were kind enough to be one of the artists that came to Nashville and filmed the set. And what's interesting that you have done that no artist has done in releasing it, you called the project by our name, our nonprofit names, which was very kind of you, very brave of you, and you could have just put your name on it and moved along. So I can see where for some people not knowing about this nonprofit, they go, what is that?
Well, you and I have been friends for many years, and we were friends when you started this journey where it was just you going into prisons. I went with you right at the very beginning when you went to a women's prison right outside of Nashville. So I'm a believer, I'm a supporter, and to be a part of it in any capacity is always a blessing and an honor for me. I feel that people need to know about it. It's such a great, fantastic thing. And it brings such light into such a dark place. I'm tickled to be a part of it. I had 3 questions I wanted to ask you. And you jumped ahead to 3, which is the literally shooting the videos versus going into the prisons. And this is something I've always wanted to know. How does that work? Like tablets and stuff?
Sure. I can explain what I know.
You've been told, yes.
As I said, prior to COVID, we went in and did live events. As for all of us, COVID was hopefully a big pivot to the plus, not the negative. Be as it may, for the incarcerated world, how do you have visitations? So if you're doing time and you need a legal representative or family visitation, how did that work? There's not one answer. Much of what I've learned along the way is, depending on the state or the facility, meaning their budget, they had to figure out how they were going to get tablets and how they would put content on those tablets, where the content would come from. So the easiest way to probably explain this is, if you've ever checked into a hotel and turned on the TV, they'll have the hotel channel. That's coming from in-house intranet, right? So they're just giving you information of what time the pool opens, etc. Similar to in prison, they don't have Wi-Fi, but they can stream a signal to televisions and to tablets that have pre-recorded content, which means it's probably on a thumb drive or an iCloud, depending again on the budget of that state and that facility, to give them content. So quickly, people were trying to figure out how to do this. One of the upsides of that journey for many people was, who are the networks? So in our world of TV, you have major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS. That meant you had to have someone like Uncle Joe who was going to collect this content and give it to facilities. And they would then put it onto their network in-house.
Right.
So early on, I was hearing conversations of IT directors that wanted to help. And they were getting, whether it was faith-based content or educational content, or just letting them know because they couldn't come out of their cells when the GED classes would start back up and somebody would come and bring paperwork to their cells. And some of these people that were creating networks would license and lease content from sites, download it to thumb drives or DVDs and start giving it to facilities. Now, in the last 3 years, that's grown. That's the Reader's Digest. Does that kind of answer your question?
It totally does. A vast majority of people that are going to watch this have not been incarcerated. It's one of the eye-opening things about that first night that we went to the place in Asheville was that it was a small little chapel. Was there maybe like 75 women in this little chapel, maybe 100. Everybody came in and sat down and did their thing, and then you performed. And that was a reward for them. That wasn't a big place. So let's just say there's 1,000. Well, only 100 got to come to this show. And the next Sunday night, there was like an ice cream social or something, but it was strictly based on good behavior. And it was really eye-opening to me. And so I wondered if this was the same kind of thing. It's like, hey, man, if you're a problem all week, then you don't get to watch Kevin sing his sad folk songs.
There are various ways that wardens and corrections run their facility. Right. I don't know that all the ins and outs, but to your point, I love that more than just who could get to the chapel or the gym that day based on the behavior could have the experience. Now this pre-recorded content can travel into facilities.
Right.
Even if they only have enough tablets for 40% of the population, they can still show it in program rooms and a chow hall, and it carries on. You know, as you know, you're there the day of, it's like you had to be there. Now that's completely flipped.
That's beautiful, man. That's because I wanted to know that for myself. Last question for you. What is the heart? What is the agenda of this? What is the meat on the bone? Why do you get up and do this?
Okay. Well, I have to ask myself that every day. And if I don't have a great answer, I'll quit. You know, my former life, as you know, we met when we were both full-time doing the artist thing. And the artist journey is what led me to this. I'd never had aspirations of starting a nonprofit. I highly encourage no one to start a nonprofit unless it's just going to keep you up at night, then do it. For me, in my journey, having toured and done all those commercial things, my glass ceiling was low, but high enough to know that I was stuck in the middle, right? I had tasted some great things from a commercial life, but I was exhausted on van life. And I played a prison one day, and the challenge was remarkable as a creative, as a writer, as a communicator. I was at the end of a tour in LA, and I was asked by a dear friend who was in LA going to visit a prison if I wanted to come with him. And at the end of a tour, going from full production to a room of 300 gangsters with their arms crossed, and I'm a white kid at a piano, that can be highly problematic. But for me personally, I realized in that moment, it didn't matter who I was, they needed hope. And the difference between them and us isn't much other than you and I could go to coffee tomorrow and be an encouragement to one another. They don't often get that in their home life, or the closest thing to family they have is gang life. They're not getting as much affirmation in their self and their journey to heal as we may get or give within our communities. And I felt very connected to that moment. It was one of the greatest challenges I had ever had. So from there, I went 5 years just touring prisons. Most people thought I had left the music business, and no, I just went into the shadows and wanted to be in the back of rooms where no one went. And by that, I mean, a lot of facilities have great programming, their local churches, education programs, mental health, but the max block in the back of the building, or the prisons that are highly violent, what about those guys? Or mental health facilities or hospice facilities? For whatever reason, and it's not me trying to be a renegade, I just know what it's like to be loved on a dark day. I'm one of the lucky ones that's been loved in dark days. So I thought, man, if somebody would let us back into that room for an hour and we could just remind them that they matter, that they're not their worst day, and do so with music, That would make for a great day. So selfishly, for me, that could make for a great day. That being said, 5 years into it, I was pretty exhausted. I'm going into facilities where no one's coming in on a winning streak. So I started looking at the calendar going, oh man, there might be 18 more dates on the calendar. I don't know if I can do those. So enter you and enter that artist and that artist and that artist. I'm like, hey, if we can put a little crew together for you and get you in there, get you out safely and have a great experience, would you like to go? I have to simplify it almost every day. It's truly getting to the back of a room to remind people they are not their worst day and using music to do it. That's it. When it gets bigger than that and smaller than that, I'm usually not in my lane. Over the last 15 years we're doing this, we've started schools, we've done reentry programs, and all of that's been great, but it wasn't our lane. So these days, we do the meat and potatoes, the meat on the bone, go in and do a live event, and when it's done well, they are reminded that they're not their worst day. And prior to COVID, we could never get a camera or audio recording into prisons. Like maybe in 12 years, we had done it 6 times, and it took a lot of work to make that happen. Well, during COVID, we were filming all these episodes and giving them to prisons that we work at. When all that was lifted and we started rescheduling, they said, hey, would you film here? So this whole past year, and same for this year, most of all of our bookings are going to be filmed. To your earlier point, it will allow us to give that content to the whole facility. So all this year we were recording facilities where 300 inmates max come to the room. Well, what does that say to the other 1,400 on campus? And we tell them, in hey, 6 weeks, your warden and your program director will have this content to put on your tablets and your TVs.
Right.
And then one of the things that we do in addition is artists agree that we can give that content to any facility in the world. So the artists that we invite in to do this are artists that, provide not only great songwriting, but a story of hope, story of healing. To me, the payment that we give to artists like yourself is you get to own the content. So we are just standing in the middle as conduit saying, hey, if the artist can give a day, they get to have the content. The prison can have, or prisons can have the content forever. Many artists are like, thank you, and they move on. But it's difficult for an A-lister to release the content because it might push up against another commercial release, or they have to wait 2 years. I think you've done a great job at just turning it into an EP. It's so kind of you again to use our name as the title, which I love that it confuses people because if they care, they got to turn a couple rocks to see what's going on.
Right. Well, it makes them talk. It's fascinating to me when I say the name of it and people just crack up. Like that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And it's like, no, it's legitimate.
What was your experience like? So you did a studio episode. So we still run these studio episodes because after COVID, we're like, this is great. We can sometimes do 2 or 3 sessions in a day where a prison takes an all-day commitment. In your experience of now releasing a new EP, and I know you've released a lot of great projects in your career, like what has your feedback been like in the last couple of weeks in regards to your experience?
Well, first of all, it's beautiful. Visually, it's just breathtaking. Truly, it's like a VH1 style. So people are thrilled with that, as am I. It's gorgeous. It's gold and red and green and black and flickering lights. And it's all those things, a chandelier. So it's beautiful. I think, I'm sure people went before Johnny Cash, but I mean, he's the man that did it and, kind of put out a record and the whole thing. So they're fascinated by that. And you and I have talked about this. There are groups of people. I'm not trying to get too theological on you, but I think it's in Matthew where it says to visit the ones that are homebound, the widows, and go see the prisoners. I'm butchering the Bible right now, so forgive me. But the message of it is don't forget about these groups over here. And I think of those 3 or 4, man, the incarcerated are the most overlooked. And I realize that, we live in a society where there's rewards and there are punishments for what you do. Nobody's trying to make light of that. But the spirit of it is there's a punishment. You do this, you get this. Well, they're doing it. With that being said, give them some hope, give them some joy, give them something to think about outside of that world that is there for them 24/7, 365. That's the view they get. So man, the thought of being able to go in with your set, your sound to do what we love to do, which is perform and sing our songs and speak our hearts. It's a gift. I really wrestled with like, how do I get my head around doing this? You've asked me to do it before and I've always been like, yeah, I will. Eventually I'll do it. I just never felt like I was the guy to do it. And thank goodness I'm in a different place in my life. I thought, you know what? I'm thrilled you asked me. I'd be beyond honored to do it. And so my feedback from myself, from others, has been so positive. People are so fascinated by when they find out that it's an organization that does this on a regular basis. And so that's why I wanted us to talk. So maybe more people know about what you do and maybe supporting it financially or even just, prayerfully. And I appreciate you letting me be a part of that world. And I hope to get to do some more stuff with you in the future. And I think we've done some good chatting here and you've answered all my questions.
Man, thank you for being kind enough to talk, and congratulations on releasing an EP. You're everything we're about, your heart and your vision and your songwriting. So thank you. And we all wish you all the best on releasing another project. It's a brave world out there to release music.
You know what? I think it's such a complicated time. It's such a simple idea. Just stand there with your guitar, sing your songs, and let them out the window. So that's what we're doing.
Well said, Kevin Lawson.
Nathan Lee, you are officially the man. Let there be no doubt. I love you. And it's always good to see you, even if it's on a computer screen.
Bro, I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. And thank you for your love.
Everybody, thanks for checking this out and checking out Send Musicians to Prison. My EP is on everything. Go check it out wherever you get your music from. I bet it's there. And if you're looking for something wonderful to be a part of and learn more about, check out Nathan Lee and sendmusicianstoprison.com.